one hit line drive.
Want to lose weight?
We just roll with the punches, man. We just roll with the punches.
Yep.
You know, how many times you've been out in the field and something didn't work, and you're like, listen, the mission's not over.
Hey,
We're gonna move.
Just gotta go with it.
We're gonna move, my friends. So for people, God, dude, where did we meet? Do you remember how we met?
I do remember. I remember we met in Sean Whalen's mastermind group, the Lion's Den.
God, why did I thought that's what it was, but I don't remember. Like, I think it must have. That's a great group. Okay. It's like I feel like I've always just known you. Like, it's like I've known you for like 5 or 6 years. I'm like, I can't remember the specific, like, there was this meeting point. I remember like us in the group and then us like hanging out. It's like, that's weird. One of the things that, so we met it's a little bit longer than that. 5 or 6 years ago, we meet in a group that's a private group that's hosted by Sean Whalen called the Lion's Den, that focuses on like self-improvement is the easiest way to admit to kind of put a head on it. The fast forward that we did you come to the first Meltdown? Have you been to every Meltdown?
I was at the first one. I couldn't make the ones after that. So I was at the first one.
Okay. So Jay comes to the Meltdown. He's always been super like active inside of our communities. And, you know, knowing a little bit about Jay's background, he's been in the military for 20 plus years. He's done some amazing things that I want to dive into. But when we talk about what the power of what you've heard, whether you're hearing this now live or you're hearing this through the replay, is no matter where you are and where you find yourself based on the landscape that we're in, there is opportunity for things to change. I think one of the consistent things that we've heard is it's been around mindset. Jay, you come to the first Meltdown. Before you come to the Meltdown, I want to talk about your career in the military and then it kind of leading up to that first event and what you're doing now. You've been in the military now how many years? 23,
it'll be 24 next year.
24 years. Thank you for your service again. You know, it's men and women like you that they're my heroes. So I look up to you guys a lot. So thank you. So you're a military dude, man. You've been in the system for a long time. You're a leader in this system. You start looking for self-help and then you find yourself in an event. Like, what drives all of those things? Like, walk me through kind of a little bit of the military career and then what brought you to even to the den.
Yeah. So first and foremost, it's a tremendous honor that you asked me to come and speak on this platform, because the Meltdown, that experience ultimately changed the trajectory of my life. And just to give a quick background of my life, I grew up in a very emotionally and physically abusive home growing up. My father had survived World War II as a child. So my father and my grandmother I'm half German, half Dutch. On my German side, they were the only survivors. He immigrated to the United States, joined the Army for a couple of years, and just kind of made his way. But he was I think from his upbringing, very unstable, and had a series of marriages. Ultimately met my mother, who was probably his fourth marriage. And just like the other marriages, a lot of emotional, physical abuse, and to my mother and myself. My mother was immigrated from Holland. They met in California, and he ultimately left. My mother wasn't able to care for me, so he took me with him. Cycle continued. He meets another woman. Same cycle continues, but instead of taking me, he leaves me there. My mother's unable to care for me, so I ended up in Missouri growing up. We're talking the physical abuse had stopped, but the emotional abuse was there because I wasn't the biological child of this woman. And we were very poor. We're talking, redneck washer dryer on the front porch kind of poverty. And in my adopted family, which I wasn't part of the clan really, but I was different. I knew I wanted to get out of that situation. But no one, even in that side of the family, ever really graduated high school. I'm like, how am I going to get out of this situation? It was just grueling to be a part of this. And I saw the military as an attractive way to, there's father figures there. There's meaning and purpose in that. I really like the physical fitness aspect of it. I had a high school track coach that actually took interest in me and invited me to cross country. And for the first time in my life, I had someone that actually looked out for me, gave me guidance, forced me to raise my ambition, I got my grades up. He kind of helped me as a father figure, take me down the track of joining the military. Ultimately joined the military, and that's where I just kind of closed that chapter of my life and just kept my head down. In the military, it was great because I'm around father figures. I am doing things that challenge me. I am a part of something greater than myself, teamwork. And I just felt that I had a lot of hope in this organization. In the Army, they feed you, they clothe you, they, if you're willing, you raise your hand to volunteer for schools, you get to go to schools, college opportunities if you want to go. And so for the first time, I had people that motivated me. I had this drive in me to do the best I could. And I started as an E1 private. I made my way to E7, sergeant first class in about 8 years. That's the average retirement on the enlisted side. So I was just flying up the ranks. And I was going to go down the special forces track. I ultimately got married, and my wife at the time and I, we had triplet daughters. And that kind of changed the trajectory of my life. And I decided to go the officer candidate school route, honor grad of that, and commissioned. And here I am, I'm back-to-back 2 company commands where I've been working in leadership and development of officers. And now, my organization, we have 150 instructors, and we support basic training for 30,000 men and women that come through Fort Leonard Wood every year. I have the 28 range complex. So I'm in charge of all the rifle ranges, the hand grenade ranges, the machine gun range, all of those things to support them. And my career on paper has been great. I look great on paper, but what ultimately changed for me was, I would say probably about 15 years in my career, something started to disconnect for me. I felt like most veterans do, what am I going to do after my service? Because typically after 20 years, that's where you kind of part ways and separate and go do something else. So I had some nervousness there because I didn't know what else. I didn't know what else I could do. The military was all that I knew. My marriage wasn't going very well at the time, and I felt that I was kind of, my mission and my purpose wasn't in line with who I was and what I was doing. I was showing up and fulfilling my obligation. And it's difficult for me to say this because I'm still in the service. It started to feel like an obligation, which it is. And I fulfill that obligation because I'm committed to it. But I felt like a lot of the wins in the military had changed, the sustained combat rotations, the PTS. I say PTS, like Dan described earlier, it's not a disorder. It's something that we all have, post-traumatic stress, unpacking my experiences with that, and just trying to figure out who I was going to be after the military. And I struggled with that. And I got down that path. We see a lot of people doing 22 push-ups a day. A lot of veterans commit suicide. And I started having that suicide ideation. I felt, when you lose hope in the future, you start to feel hopelessness, and the pain of depression is unlike anything else. It's horrible. And I was put on my uniform. I feel like I'm playing a character for a good chunk of time. I was a leader, but I'm playing a character and doing it very well. But deep down inside, I just felt disconnected. I felt lost, and the pain of depression was just awful. And I think for me personally, if it weren't for my daughters, I just recently read A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He talks about, his experiences in the death camps and the reason that people chose to live. And it's for,
that's a great book.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the purpose, your work and having purpose, it's relationships, and it's for suffering and achievement that you get through suffering. And I knew that for my daughter's sake, I did not want them to go through a life without a father, because I didn't have a father. and there's no way that I could do that for them. So I chose to live. And I'm like, okay, these feelings aren't normal. And when I first came in the military, you didn't go and seek help. That was a sign of weakness. That has since changed, but I still had that mindset. So I didn't seek help for the longest time. And I'm like, I'm choosing to live. Radical change requires radical change. I have got to do something. And so I wasn't much of a reader, but it started with a book called The Slight Edge. And The Slight Edge is all about habits. And so I'm like, you know what? This book made me feel good. I'm going to start the habit of just reading. And the most respected people that I looked up to as leaders read. So I started reading and reading. And that opened up my mind to just personal development. So I was very much a fixed mindset growing up, fixed mindset in the military. And the military has a very, we're a community off the beaten path. In World War II, everyone knew someone that served. In the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, you might run into 100 people and only one of those 100 may know someone that has actually served. And in recruiting, when I was a recruiter, I would talk to people, and I would be the only soldier that they would ever get a chance to talk to. We are very disconnected from society. And so it's a very fixed mindset. But what I found in personal development was like, hey, there's a way. There is hope for me. And that's when I ran across Sean's messages on his videos on Facebook. Ultimately, you know what? I was compelled to put my money down and join this paid group. Who joins a paid Facebook group? Totally changed my mindset. And that led me to meeting you and other people like you. And then I was compelled to go to the Meltdown in the desert to meet my other Lion's Den friends and learn about entrepreneurism. But what I got from the Meltdown, really, what ultimately changed my life was Dom was speaking earlier, and I felt like he was speaking directly to me about his experiences in the military, his experience as a police officer, facing depression. And we locked eyes during that. We talked about it after the speech. Like, he fundamentally changed. Like, that was the red pill for me. I immediately unplugged from the matrix at that point in time. I'm like, there is hope for me. I'm doubling down on my personal development, and I feel that there is service after the military. With all of the entrepreneurs and all the value that was being added in the Meltdown, like, you can serve outside the military. There's other ways to serve. And that was like a mind-opening experience for me. And a lot of people are trapped in this fixed mindset, and I was as well. And that's ultimately what led me to the Meltdown, and what ultimately, I still had an obligation from the Meltdown to the military. I'm still in command, but I'm going to be retiring next year. But I'm starting my path now as an entrepreneur. I went to High Performance Academy this year and got certified as a high performance coach. Launching a website, I'm going to be launching a podcast. I'm going to write a book, kind of following Dom's footsteps. I looked up to him as kind of someone to emulate. So, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you having me come here to speak. And so that's a little bit about me and how I got to where I'm at in this moment in time.
I appreciate you sharing that, Jay. It's the reason that I wanted to have you on, and I think it's important. It's like when I brought Grease in. There's a couple people that I know that I see that have been consistent, that are doing things that I'm always kind of always see in the peripherals. Like I'm always see it and paying attention. It's when you see somebody that's taken, like you're in an event, you go to a community, you're building relationships, and then like those people do something. I think our rate at the Meltdown is probably higher than most events, like the people that actually do something afterwards, at least initially for a bit. The endorphins run out, and you don't have that same push. Like, you have to stay self kind of driven. Is like you've continued to stay building. When we had a conversation, when I asked you if you jump on and share some of your story, the purpose of my thought of it was, I know that there's somebody in the military right now that's serving. There's somebody that's a first responder. There's somebody that's a police officer that was in that same place. And the only thing that it's hope, man. It's like being able to share hope with other people that look, act, and feel like a speaker, like you, for instance, right? Is being able to align that, and you live what you talk, right? Because I remember I've only met you on your journey. Like, I didn't know you before. So it's like, I just see you building. So I don't know what you've done before. And I think one of the powerful thing that really hit me, man, when we spoke, kind of when I asked you if you'd come on, was that fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. it's like, because in my mind, I was like, that was not the answer I thought you were going to give me when I was like, what's one of the things you kind of took away from the series and what you've been doing? And it was the, when you said that to me, it took me back and I had to, I wasn't expecting the answer, because in my mind, I thought you come from a system that like, and you're a leader of leaders. I didn't even ever think that. I didn't think that it's like kind of this is fixed until you said, no, it's a fixed mindset. I had to get out of like these blinders because this is the way and the only way. It's like the problem solving is there, but like I didn't think that was like that's like that would have been a hurdle that you had to get over. When Dom rips your face off, like when you hear him speak, people see him here, and if you don't know him, like we got to figure out a way for you to get to an event to see him, because he doesn't need a microphone, and like you'll be lucky if he has his sleeves on still, and he is in your face. That's the most toned down I've ever seen that dude. I mean, when we talk, obviously it's not as intense, but the dude is intense. Talk to me about that difference between the did you know that it was a fixed mindset kind of going into it, knowing that like, here I am doing these things, I feel kind of stuck, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm going to give this thing a try? Did you know that you were in that position? Or was it just something you're like, I just want to make a change? Like, could you feel yourself kind of stuck in a routine?
I knew I was stuck in a routine. I didn't understand the concept of fixed mindset versus growth, but I knew it just changed. I had a paradigm shift in my mind. There's a handful of books and events that I've been a part of that fundamentally change how you think. And the Meltdown was absolutely one of those events. Between his speech and then just hearing the lineup of everyone else, like Tom Bilyeu, I've listened to his keynote speech from the Meltdown numerous times, because it's about unplugging from the matrix and looking at things from a different perspective. And I didn't realize that I had a fixed mindset. I think a lot of people don't realize they have a fixed mindset, but now that I'm in a growth mindset, you can see it plain as day with people. It's why they're paralyzed to try new things, or they're afraid of. And I was fixed. I was like, there's no hope for me after the military. And although, we talked about adapting and overcoming things like that, there are left and right limits, and we are trained to do that, but within the confines of the military system for a lot of people. And I know I still am nervous about getting out and what does that look like and interacting, but with my growth mindset, I'm like, you know what, I have the ability to grow and adapt and learn. And it gives me more confidence in that, because I realize that, I'm not fixed. Like I can grow and learn and develop and be a part of things. That's why being a part of an event like this is so important, or continuous reading or trying new things. So.
I love it, dude. I love it. My man, you're about to retire. When you retire next month?
It'll be next year. I got about a year left. So
next
I'm
year.
currently in command. I will hand off the guidon to my replacement, and then I'll be working in a staff job, just kind of starting that transition period. They have a pretty good system about helping you with the Soldier for Life transition process. I've got a bunch of vacation days to take up, and so probably about next summer I'll be out.
I love it. Right now, like I said, there's that military person that's sitting in Fort Bragg. There's that police officer sitting in Missouri. There's that first responder in Tucson who feels stuck, who haven't kind of made that progression. If you were to find them and give them some words of encouragement or hope, what would you tell them?
I would have them look at, I wish I would have taken heed of this sooner. Most of my leadership that I ultimately respected the most, they were all voracious readers. There's always a commander that has a command reading list, but as just a frontline everyday soldier, commander reading list, that's not for me. I'm going to just read. General Mattis, former Secretary of Defense, has a quote. I'm going to butcher this, but basically he says that we're functionally illiterate. He's known for being the warrior monk for all the books that he owns and reads, and he cites that every situation that he's been in militarily or in a leadership, he's been able to hearken and reference from a book that he's read. And there's a quote about a fool never learns his lesson. A smart man learns from from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. So if I could give anyone hope or just, advice, is to just read, because it's going to, if even in your current career field, your obligations with the military or first responders, it's going to give you the tools to be successful, because ultimately we need to show up and be ready to serve. And having those experiences from other people will give you additional tools, but also it's going to open up your mind to look at when you do end up taking the uniform off, because no matter what, we are all going to take off the uniform, and you've got to find, it is incumbent upon us. We all raise our right hand and swear an oath, whether you're in the military or first responder, because we have an inherent reason to serve, but there's additional ways to serve your communities. And in our country, especially in 2020, in this time, you look around, it's like we're void of leadership. Like we're void of leaders of character, and it is incumbent upon us to find other ways to serve. And that could be as like, volunteering your time, in Little League, coaching a team, getting involved in your church, writing a book about your story, starting a podcast, starting a business that adds value. There's so many different ways to serve beyond the uniform. And where I used to be terrified, like, how am I going to do this? I'm actually looking forward to the future, because I know that I can bring my leadership skills into the marketplace. I want to help other veterans and first responders. I want to help entrepreneurs. I want to help leaders at the executive level. The military is really good about developing leadership. And the one thing that I appreciated as I trained, I was in commander of the Engineer Basic Officer Leadership course. So we had all the engineer lieutenants. Every engineer lieutenant that comes in the Army came through my course. I was an instructor and the commander. So we affected about 3,000 officers. They come from all walks of life in our country, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different genders, different races, different sexual orientation. It doesn't matter where you came from, what your value system is now. So we're teaching them the Army way of doing things, where we all bleed green, and it doesn't matter. What matters is, how lethal are you? Are you a person of character? Are you going to be there to lead, America's most precious resources, which is our sons and daughters? And we had to do this rapidly, because as soon as they graduate the course, they're going to take their platoon. They're in charge of 40 soldiers. Many of them are deploying right away. So we took that job very seriously. And so I just say that, I guess I'm kind of going off a tangent here, but leaders read. And I think it's important that for any first responder or anybody in the military is to deep dive into that, because it's going to make you better.
I love it, dude. Great words of wisdom. Read and follow people that are doing things that you'd like to do. Like they're out there. Push yourself a little bit. If you're watching this in a broadcast, rebroadcast, live, you've been tagged in this. Who knows? I don't know where you're finding us today. Could be YouTube, could be Instagram, could be podcast, could be Facebook. You're here, right? So you're listening. So that's a big step, is follow those who are doing things you'd like to do. I mean, go to Jay's page and see the stuff he's doing, see who he's following, right? Like, who is he paying attention to, and follow those people, right? So you can get this inspiration of just thinking a little bit different. Jay, where can people find you?
They can easily, the best way to find me right now is Facebook. They can just look up Jay Tiegs on Facebook. I do have a website. It'll be probably published next week, jtiegs.com. I'm actually building it right now.
Spell your last name for people.
Tiegs.
JTIEGS. My man, it's been an honor. I absolutely appreciate you coming in. Thank you for the patience on getting bounced around on our makeshift stage today. I appreciate you, dude. I honor you. I respect what you're doing. And I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate being here. I hope, our conversation is able to help someone out there.
I already know it has. I'm already getting pinged here. So it works in real time. Jordan Stanley Payne, you're up next. My man, have a great weekend. I'm not sure if you have the girls or not. Give them a kiss, and I will talk to you soon.
I just finished up phase 175 hard, drinking a beer right after this.
Oh, my man. My fat butt needs to do. I did 365 soft. It was all carbs and sugars. Now I'm ready for the more intense version, which will be 162 medium. And then eventually I'll get to hard. I need to do it, though. Appreciate you, dude. Later.